All right, guys, Patrick from Art Storefronts back with another artist interview. In this case, we've got photographer Ken Wiele, who I've just met, and I'm really, really excited to get into his story. So, Ken, welcome to the Art Marketing Podcast.
Hey, Patrick, great to be here, man.
Amazing. Well, let's start with your origin story. Where are you from? How long you've been doing the photography thing, and kind of just give us a little background on you.
Sure. I just it's just really fun for me to talk about because for the longest time I had this dream about being a photographer. I was a teacher for 35 years, and always
Wow.
in the back of my mind I had this other dream that was going on. Just
Mm-hmm.
when I retired, I throw myself into this this fun stuff. So I was a high school band director, teacher. I waved my arms around, and the kids were in the band, and had so much fun with that, connecting with the kids and the parents. But it was time to be done. When I retired, I was talking to my wife, and I said, I really got to find something that I can stay creative, something that I can do that keeps my energy going. I had to find that creative outlet, and I was just happened to be watching a YouTube video, and there you popped up on the YouTube, and you're doing your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and there were so many things about what you said resonated with me. Maybe the biggest thing was you reminded me a little bit of one of my coaches in high school, a guy who would just kick me in the butt and say, "Hey, you got, are you going to be a hobbyist? Really going to throw yourself all in? Are you really going to go after this?" And it was the tipping point for me. I signed up the next day, and I went outside in the backyard. I'll never forget. I told my wife, she was out tending her garden. I said, "Honey, guess what? I just took a plunge here, took a leap of faith, and I joined this company, which I think is going to be just what I need." And everything after that, joining the SF was like the tipping point for me. When I got in, all these, I know it sounds crazy, but all these wonderful things started happening after I joined. I got into a gallery. I created this book. The book
Mm-hmm.
sales were phenomenal. The whole thing took off. And I know people are skeptical hearing this, like, "Oh, come on," but it's true. Everything, all these wonderful things started happening to me after I, placed a bet on myself. I bet on myself and said, you're going to go after this. And the other thing I did was I opted in for 3 years. I didn't want to give
Okay.
myself a chance to bail.
You burn the boats. You burn the boats. Yeah.
I did.
It's so important. So how long have you been on board so far? Like what's
So it'll be 3 years. It'll be 3 years in July.
Wow. 3 years in July. Take me back to that first year. So when you signed up, you hadn't even sold a piece of art yet?
Never sold a piece of art. No, hadn't done
Wow.
anything. I just really, and I didn't believe in myself much at all, thinking, okay, I'm just another retired guy with a camera. I was taking pictures of wildlife and nature. I'm one of them, thousands of guys like me out there doing this. But what I discovered was I had sales in the wind behind my sales with ASF. I had this tactical advice about how to market my stuff in a way that was really powerful. And I decided that I would go and look at all the resources and take advantage of all of that was there. It's just this huge vault of stuff that I just learned every day, brick by brick, started building that confidence in thinking my work could sell.
Amazing. What can you give us some sort of notion of sales? So you started from scratch. You didn't have a Facebook page. You didn't have an Instagram account. You had never tried to sell. You had a body of work that you were continuing to clean up. And sort of what does sales trajectory look like over the 3 years?
So the first year was around 5 or 6K.
Mm-hmm.
The second year was around 12 or 13. Last year I did 22.
Amazing. I love hearing numbers like that because everybody always loves glomming on to the artists that are selling incredible amounts, and no one ever talks about what it actually looks like to be in the trenches and growing this thing is bit by bit, year over year. But it's amazing that you were able to generate those sales that quickly year one. We have such a large body of artists and photographers that are struggling to figure out what their niche is, what's their subject matter material, what's resonating, what's going to work, how am I going to get some demand, right? So I'd be curious, going back to that first year, and you should mention you're from Wisconsin, right?
Right.
And you, the majority of your work, would you say, is sort of local Wisconsin flora, fauna, nature kind of shots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have roots up in up northern Michigan and near Lake Superior.
Hmm.
So my niche, I had to define my niche. It really would be, the nature stuff from that part of the country, northern Wisconsin, upper Michigan, Lake
Hmm.
Superior, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm showing kind of some of the flora and fauna in your Instagram account currently. And I would be very curious to ask you, because I think one of the things that, like, nature photographers struggle with in particular is, like, how the hell do you differentiate yourself? There's so many nature photographers out there. There's so many people that have beautiful images, that have been to all the same places, but you've figured out a way to make it work, make it stick, and start getting traction. What do you think was responsible for that growth there?
For me, it was all about making a personal connection. I took really spent a lot of time and reaching out personally to when I just did this show down here is an example of that. I really, really contacted you, messaged individually, wrote greeting cards, invitations, reached out to people on a one-on-one basis. I mean, I really took a lot of time to do that, knowing, first of all, just terrified that no one was going to show up at the show.
Yeah,
I wanted
yeah,
to
of
have
course.
somebody there. But, I knew that if I reached out and just made that personal connection, I knew that that would be the tipping point, and it really did. I mean, at the show Sunday night, Patrick, there were 115, 116 people, and they all. I mean, I sold 10 pieces,
Amazing.
and my books were there, of course, and I sold over 40 books, and my wife and I just looked at each other and were over the moon. We just couldn't believe it, and I I just kept. I used all the tactics you guys talk about all the time, and it felt like that was sort of the, I don't know, another mountaintop, another breakthrough for me. Just reaching that point, which sort of validated my work. But
Mhm.
it's all about the connection in my mind. And I have to be honest. I have this connection already baked into being a teacher. I have these connections of people from 35 years worth of working.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
And so you've leveraged those folks and leaned into those folks and said, "Hey, I'm doing this now. Do you want to check this out?" And you found that's been really helpful for the growth.
Yeah, just that personal touch, and that's been huge. And then taking time, going into the weeds on Instagram and Facebook, and just really wanting to always respond in a real timely way to people who are making comments about my work. I have a tactic that I learned after somebody buys a piece from me, sending a thank you card, but then giving them 4 or 5 greeting cards along with that of the piece that they bought. And then I personalize the back of the card and I say, from the collection of, and then
Hmm.
it's, whoever bought the piece, that name. And that has been something I think that's another tactic that's worked really well.
Amazing. Do you have one of you happen to have one of those close, or no? I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So this is one of my all-time bestsellers. For the people who love northern Michigan in that area, there's this bird called a loon, and the loons are like really, really popular up here. People absolutely love them. And I just was able to capture this shot. It got a lot of awards, and so I use this in show that I do, and it's been a really great seller. This piece is sold in my gallery that I'm in up north. I mean, I sold probably 15 or 16 prints of this last summer.
Amazing.
Anyway, so this is the back, and then this part here, it's not on this card because this is the generic version, but underneath the title, I have from the collection of Smith, whoever bought the
Mhm.
print. So when they get that, it's the first thing they do right away. They get back to me. Wow, I have, and for some reason, seeing it's like I'm talking to them or reminding them about the fact that, yeah, you're a collector of my stuff now, right?
Yeah.
You collect my stuff. You are a collector. I just labeled it. You're a collector.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like I always highlight this book. Have you bought this book yet, or have you read this book?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know, he goes into depth about, and it's you guys, it's Don't Be a Starving Artist by Weiland, for those that are just listening, not watching this. Um, he goes into depth about, like, he comments on his collectors' Instagram posts. You know, he has them, like, I not just sending the personalized Christmas card, commenting on their posts, sending text messages. Like, your collectors need to be treated like gold, you know, and they'll come back again and again and again. So I love that personal reach out. I also love, just on a side tangent, I think you and I are old school, right? So we've watched the death of a great many marketing mediums, the emergence of new marketing mediums, and we're old enough now to know, like, trends that were big trends in the past have started to come back. My firm belief is that direct mail and or physical postcards dropped on a porch are back in vogue. Like, you know, there was a point in time in our younger years where mail was out of control. There was so much junk mail in there. You would throw away 90% of it in the trash bin, and you would keep your, like, 3 or 4 bills, right? And that was mail, and it just got so crowded. Well, social media came in and stole a bunch of attention. All the marketing dollars, all the energy, and all the effort has continued to flow there. And it's like, no one's been talking about mail. Mail now, I believe, to be like one of the most effective marketing channels that can exist. And it doesn't matter if you do it directly to the mailbox, or if you pay a kid on rollerblades to go through the neighborhood. I actually want to see all of our customers start leveraging it more. I just released a podcast episode on this yesterday. Like, I love that you're on the direct mail, and I even think you should go as far as, like, sending one a month. Send one a month to everyone that you have an address on, and just say newest work. Have a little promo in there, maybe a QR code for the gift card, because, like, the direct mail that does come and gets dropped on the porch. I don't know if this is the case for you, but I get, like, landscape, because I should make a differentiation. You're not allowed to put something in a mailbox without postage on it. Technically, that's illegal. I had a post person tell me this. Someone that worked at the post office, a customer. But dropping stuff on the porch, you are allowed to do. And what do I get on there? I get landscaping services, mulch guys, maids, occasionally realtors, or the guy that's constantly trying to sell solar.
Yep.
But you
Yep.
drop a beautiful piece of art on someone's front doorstep, like, it doesn't get thrown away right away. You know, it ends up on the kitchen counter or something, and then your wife sees it, and then you talk about it for a second, and then it might go back to your office. So I think you're on the right target with that, and I highly encourage you to keep doing that, because I think that's just a great way to go about it. I also think what's really interesting with what you have going on, and I see this as an emerging trend, and I think I've seen it work both as an artist side of things, but also on the photographer side of things, which is own your backyard and be the northern Michigan, Wisconsin nature guy, right? And you have that going on, and it so tightly defines your niche, and yet gives you the width and breadth. Anything that's flora, that's fauna, that's in the zeitgeist of your town, if you brand yourself as that guy, like, you have such a width and breadth of everyone that loves that town, visits that geographical area. So I sort of feel like that's the trajectory you're on. Are you doing that intentionally, or do you feel like you've just sort of fallen into it?
A little bit of both, I think.
Mhm.
One of the things I think I'm really good at after teaching for so long is I can tell stories.
Mhm.
So, as much as possible, I try to surround my work with
Mhm.
stories any way I can, whether it's through Instagram or Facebook. And in the gallery, I've got a little QR code next to the piece, and
Mhm.
the QR code is just right underneath, like, 2 or 3 sentences of the story.
Mhm.
And then the story about the piece starts out with a couple sentences, and then the next thing is, if you want to read the full story, jump on the QR code, go to my website. You can read the whole story about the piece. And I found that people are curious. They're always curious about, okay, what's the rest of the story? And I think I'm convinced that after listening to you guys talk and drill this into us, it's about the artist as much as it is about the piece. I mean,
100%.
I have a great landscape. Great, I have a great landscape. Well, guess what? I'm one in a million guys that have great landscapes out
Yeah.
there. But if they hear talk about how I connect with the landscape, what it means to me personally, and actually even sometimes get vulnerable about, okay, I was with my mom. This is the last time I was with my mom on this part of Lake Superior. And this piece means so much to me because it was the last time I was with her on a hike near Lake Superior. And I
Amazing.
found that vulnerability also connects.
Oh, 100% it does. I've come at this so hard, and remind me, I've got to send you. We have this customer on the platform, Tim Lehman. He's like a huge Planet Earth BBC guy. So working with him, over the years, I'm keep pounding into him to like get more story into his work, right? And then he sends me. I go out. I live in Southern California, so I go out to the desert all the time. It's where most people, if you don't know the desert, it's sort of a generic term. We just call it the desert, but it's like Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, where they have Coachella, all of that. Okay. He got hired to go shoot this like Annenberg golf course bird sanctuary place that's out here. Okay. And the shots are awesome. They're great, but they're just bird shots to me. Okay. I like birds. I don't love birds. That's not true. I love birds, but it's like, I'm not dying to have a bird on my wall. But but the foundation had him come in to talk about the photos that he got. Okay. And so it's a big haul. It's a presentation, and he's giving it. I'm literally going to send this to you afterwards because I want you to watch it. And he's talking about how hard he had to work to get the shots, and the fact that he had to get out there at like 5:30, and the fact that he knew that this particular bird that was nesting in this area was out feeding and was likely to come back. And then the sprinklers came on, and he had to have his head and his camera down, so the sprinkler was shooting over his head. And I found myself going, oh my gosh, these photographs, which I was sort of into already, because they were in this desert, this place that I liked, all of a sudden have just come to life. They've all of a sudden taken on a whole new meaning because now I understood. And I go as far to say that, like, I honestly think the biggest struggle that landscape florathon guys like you have is in competing is not having the story. It's the differentiating factor. It is literally the differentiating factor into whether or not those photographs are going to sell. So I think the fact that you landed there natively is really, really impressive. And I cannot encourage you enough. The process portion of the stories, the image, the vulnerability, and the connection, like, that's the differentiator, and put it in every caption on an Instagram post. I want to talk about your Instagram briefly, by the way. So this is his best-selling photo, by the way, because I had it pulled up. And what type of birds are these again?
Those are loons.
Loons. So it's presumably a mom and a daughter loon. But what I wanted to attack you, and we have a ton of work to do on your Instagram. But you know what's amazing is, like, let me ask this question first. So, you talked about your total sales, 5 to 12 to 22,000 or whatever it is. So let's just call it you sold 40,000, 50,000, something like that. You sold $50,000 worth of art with 1,400 followers on Instagram, right? With 1,400 followers on Instagram. And what size is your email?
I'm in project.
Yeah.
My email list is about 800.
So 800 person email list, 1,400 followers, and roughly like $40,000 to $50,000 in sales. It's like, you don't need this giant Instagram following and this giant email list to generate significant revenue as an artist. And that is exciting. What's even more exciting is, what are you going to be able to generate when this 1,400 is 14,000? And then what are you going to be able to generate when this 14,000 is 100,000, right? And so I get so excited when we get customers that are past the I have a product the market wants question, right? You've already answered that. You've got a product the market wants. And so it's like, now when we start hitting your Instagram marketing more intentionally and harder, it's going to be a big deal. So you didn't ask for this, but I'm just going to sort of audit your Instagram account here briefly. Okay. Awesome. Award-winning nature photographer. Okay. Addis Tree Gallery, Lake Superior Magazine, Michigan Audubon Magazine, shot my new book. Okay. What I want in here is, I want the main cities, okay, that likely get the most search traffic. You can say award-winning nature photography based in boom, boom, boom. Okay. And the reason is that a lot of people go in and search, and they'll search nature photography, Northern Michigan, nature photography, Kenosha, nature photography, Wisconsin. And if you don't have that in your bio, then you're not opening yourself up to appearing in those searches. Okay. I would also include former band teacher in here because it gives you personality, right? It gives you like a little personality and differentiates you a little bit. I love Shop My New Book because you've got that. That's great. The other thing that jumped out on me is, okay, so you just got some great social proof here, right? Honored to see my work in the Michigan Audubon magazine. Any time that you get social proof, it really like makes a huge impact on communicating to people that this is an artist that's on the up and up. This is an artist that's going places, so I want to see a story highlight up here that says press. Okay. And anytime that you get a mention like that, you instantaneously create a story and you just add it to the story highlights. Okay. Just boom, add it right into the story highlights and make sure that you have that there. I love that you have some stuff that is not about your photography, right? Always ask yourself, what can I post or what have I posted lately that has absolutely nothing to do with my work as a photographer? Nothing, right? And if you use that as sort of the rubric to craft the post, I think you will always do great. I love the fact that you're in the gallery already. And that brings up an interesting question too. Let's talk about that for a second. So what is the nature of the gallery? Is it a 50-50 split and you don't get to know who purchases the work, or do you have a different arrangement?
It's 80-20.
It's 80-20?
80-20.
Oh my gosh. Everybody moved to the Midwest. Yeah. That's amazing.
And Patrick, it's this unbelievable collection of amazing humans. They're all, wonderful. And we all work a little certain percentage of days in the gallery. Throughout the summer and do our part, and that's part of the deal. Because I'm working, I get a better cut.
That's amazing. So as a result of working in it, do you get to know who purchases your work?
That's the problem. You've talked about this on all the podcasts and everything and I actually just joined them. They asked me to be on the board of the gallery, and I'm now in charge of marketing for the gallery. Yeah. So I'm loving it because I'm employing all the ASF tactics. And the biggest thing now, my biggest goal is to get, first of all, the email list they don't have one. Then the gallery does huge business. Really, for up there, they're in this really great area, and there's all kinds of affluent cabin resort owners, and they're coming in and buying work all the time, but their marketing is way behind. And I realize that now after spending time the last 3 years with ASF. But so I'm really going to go after the email thing up there so that I know exactly. With some detective work, I was able mostly to find out who exactly was buying my stuff and then following up with them, of course, but it took more steps than it should have,
Got it. Yeah. So, I was curious how the gallery felt about you having your own site and your own marketing, but you sort of answered that. You've got a special arrangement with this gallery. Yeah, but totally cool. It's been a trend recently. And by the way, I've sort of discovered through the process of doing these customer interviews primarily that there's quite a lot of you guys that either own a gallery or have special circumstances with a gallery. So I'm putting a group together of all of you guys that have a brick and mortar gallery, because I think we can start working on some tactical there. And the fact that you're doing the marketing for them even more so. And I love the thought of owning one. I think everything moves a little bit slower in the art world. And so social media and this notion of not having to deal with gatekeepers anymore, right? Like, hey, I've got an idea for a video show that I want to put out. I used to have to go pitch networks. Now you just go direct to consumer, right? Over the air, they call it. Right. In the art gallery world, it's taken much longer. The paradigm forever has been, if you want to be a successful selling artist or photographer, you have to be in a gallery. You got to get into a gallery no matter what. And that's the way to do it. Let them handle all your marketing, go. And COVID, I feel like, was what tipped it. So many of the galleries went out of business. So many artists that had regular and consistent income coming from the gallery, all of a sudden the spigot was shut off and their expenses didn't go away, and it was terrifying, right? Now, I feel like we're in this next moment in time where, as a result of all those galleries going out of business, as a result of retail businesses getting hammered in this country, period, there are now more spaces available in more towns across this country than there ever have been before, and the rents are lower than they've ever been before. And this opportunity as the artist to open up a gallery in their hometown is incredible. It's tremendous. And you're already halfway there. Now you've got one in a great location, but I want you to keep in the back of your head another location you could have for yourself, because I just think it's just such a fantastic additional way to generate revenue and, have a storefront presence. But what are your thoughts on that? Has that crossed your mind, or you're just happy with status quo currently?
Oh man, if you only knew how often I dream about that. And I've got some connections down here now that I'm just trying to, some warm opportunities to try to get the gallery to happen down here in my own gallery. I had when I did the show, one of the people who could make the gallery dream come true for me, I arranged for a private showing for her to go through the show before anybody else came in. And so I'm starting to keep the planting the seeds on all that. And the thing I noticed when I work in the gallery that is a cooperative with up north in northern Wisconsin, every day that I'm working there, Patrick,
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to go out and talk about my work with the customers that walk in. My sales, of course, are through the roof better when I'm working than when someone else is working. And so yeah.
Big surprise that, right? Huge surprise that. Yeah. And I also so all of us that are watching this, that are listening to this, all artists for the most part, all want the dream of online, right? In the dream of online to just work, passive income, the site's just up there, people see your work, you don't have to talk to them, and they just go onto the site and they buy, and you get this magical little email, cha-ching, you got a new order, right? I don't like that. I don't like that thought, right? I don't like the thought of thinking that is the way every transaction should be. And especially when you're at low volume, the way the transaction should be, okay, until you're getting so many of them that you physically cannot do it anymore, is you should talk. You should get on a Zoom, get on a phone call with every single solitary person that wants to purchase something from you, right? And I think, Jonah, have you seen the interviews with Jonah?
Yeah.
So
start a conversation.
Jonah doesn't even make a sale on his website or otherwise, unless it's a lower ticket item, that they don't get on a Zoom call with him. He gets on the Zoom call with them. And I think, knowing how good you are at in-person sales, I almost feel like we need that button all over your website, right? Like, schedule a Zoom with me, and jump into a Zoom, send them a link, talk to them, tell them the stories. It's my position that there is not aside from creating the work, okay, and yes, marketing, but aside from creating the work, the single solitary number one thing every artist and photographer should be focused on is, how can I get on a Zoom with a customer if I can't meet them in person? That should be how it is. And watch what happens to your AOV, average order value, when you do that. Have you done that at all? Do you offer that? I'm curious.
No, I thinking about it now, I mean, you're exactly right. That would be the next best thing to talking with people in the gallery.
Yeah. We've got to get more intentional at art storefronts and get some better playbooks in the water. Let me ask you this: 3 years into your journey, and I've been ambushing everybody with this question. If there's one thing, and only one thing, you can just pick one way that we could improve the art storefronts experience for you, what would it be for you?
It's hard to come up with something because there are so many amazing things that are happening. I'm gonna preface my one thing with all the 55 things that I love. Our storefronts team. You've put together a team, Patrick. You surrounded yourself with all these amazing, caring people that are genuine. They're sincere. They really, really. I mean, I had a saying teaching, and I would say to my, the other teachers that were just starting out, I'd say, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's a cliche and everything else, but it's so true. It's so true, because that's exactly what ASF has been for me. I know I can get on a call with Juan or Indra or anybody on the chat, and they're in my corner, and they're not only just going through doing their job, but they're doing it in a way that makes you feel like you're the most important person in their life right at that moment. It's remarkable, the team that's there, and it's really been something else. And so every step of the way I was starting out, that was a wonderful feeling. The thing that I had, and I think it was part of the thing that was just 3 years ago, you didn't have nearly the clients, but you were just sort of figuring out I didn't hear back right away immediately. Like when I joined, uh, I didn't expect hearing bells and whistles or anything like that, but it was a little bit quiet from the ASF side
Yeah.
initially once I got on board. And I kept waiting to hear, okay, is there a follow up? And I think it might have been as simple as just somebody just didn't, there were so many things happening, but that was the only thing. I just didn't feel right away like, okay, touch base with me, let me know I'm part of the family now. And then once things started rolling, woo, that more than made up for it, once I got in the loop.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've gotten a lot better about all of that. So your one thing then is just even more responsive customer service than we have currently.
No, I mean, I would qualify that by saying just initially, because I think artists, when they make that leap, many times it's a real courageous act on their part to financially get involved.
Oh, for sure.
So I mean, just that reassurance initially. Hey, you made the right decision. Look, we're really happy for you. I think that it would be like somebody that had just joined my band in high school, and I would, let them know we're so glad to have you, and blah blah blah. That kind of reassurance.
Got it. Got it. That's great feedback. I love that. Well, what you're in retirement, right? And I'm sure you've got a great pension and everything else because you were a teacher and those benefits are awesome. What is the goal for the business financially, and where are you trying to take it to? Do you have an aspirational goal to where it goes, or is it just keeping you busy? I'd be curious to hear that.
No, I wanted, my son and I talk about this all the time. He works for Dale Carnegie, and he's always talking to me about, what's your long range goal, Dad? What are you doing? And I really want to try to get close to 50K a year. That's my goal going up in the next couple of years. I'd like to reach 50K in annual sales, and then I'd like to get to the point and reach that 100K for the year. That's what I'm shooting for. And I tell you, it's fun to try to solve that every day, incrementally thinking about that.
100% it is. And the other amazing thing, and like, no one's ever upfront about it. Okay. I am always upfront about it. Okay. Because I don't like blowing smoke in the slightest. And there are certain members of my team that will remain nameless that get angry when I say it. But it doesn't matter what the business is, you guys. Okay. It takes 3 to 5 years to really get things humming. It just does. And if it takes 3 to 5 years in the normal business world, it takes even longer in the art and the photography niches at a macro, right? The fact that you had $24,000 last year, your 5 to 7 is when you're going to get this thing absolutely humming. So I completely see the trajectory you're on, getting to 6 figures. You'll probably get there year 5. You'll probably get there year 6. But the beautiful thing is that momentum is so real. It's so real. Like, it's so true. And, everyone thinks it's like, ooh, hockey stick growth. Like, no, it's just that slow incremental grind up, right? If you could go back in time, Ken, to Ken year 1, just starting this business, knowing what you know now, what would be your advice?
I would say be prepared for those slow stretches over the course of a year, when there's really nothing happening and you seem like it's hopeless. You seem like there's no traction at all. Like you feel, whatever it is, you feel like things are slowing down, and just understand that those little bricks building up, the fire will catch again, especially Q4. I mean, but there are other little bursts of excitement that happen, and it's, in my mind, it was sometimes not happening as steadily. And, there would be these periods of quiet, and you just, all of a sudden you start to get paranoid and, oh my gosh, what's happening? And people have forgotten about me and resonating with my work or whatever. And I've always felt like the challenge for me is to stay positive and realize that it's the long game. And you guys have, the thing, I know it sounds just like I'm a fanboy here, but honestly, when I feel like things are not going the way they should, I'm getting a little bit of despair, I jump on office hours. I listen to you talk. You get me going again. It's like I told you, it's like you're my coach from basketball when I played basketball in high school, and you get me going, and you kick me in the butt. Hey, let's get this. Stop crying, stop whining, work harder.
Yeah, so I think this is year 10 for me coming up, right? And we've had such an interesting
Yeah.
evolution at Art Storefronts where it started out with the software and just having the best website platform. We're like, okay, this is great. We're going to have a huge business. And then all kinds of people are canceling. And we're like, what's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. They're not seeing any success because they don't have any education in terms of the marketing. And then we started diving into the education, into the marketing. And then we realized how important the support piece. Well, now 10 years on, I've come to realize that based on the fact that all of you guys, for the most part, are solopreneurs, you don't have a team. It's not like you're a part of a company. It's you against the world. You're trying to post on social and get traction. It feels like you're shouting into the void. You've been doing it for a year and you get 2 likes on a post and you're like, what am I doing? I should have listened to my mother and never be an artist. But the emotional support, call it the coaching, call it the encouragement, call it the accountability, I think is honestly the most important part of the service. Because, I have this line. Have you maybe heard me say it? Like, it's my Hotel California line. Have you heard this from me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, your guys' desire to continue creating and ultimately get the validation that comes from selling it never leaves you. It's there. It's not going away. As creatives, as artists, as photographers. And so if you don't stay on the gas, you might quit for a little while. You might get into one of those lulls, into one of those dead spots, and nothing's working. You're like, I'm done. But guess what? The muse is going to be right back on your shoulder, and it's going to be like, okay. And then after some period of lost time, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever, you're going to be back at it trying to market again. And I believe that our role as a business is to come kick you in the ass right when you're about to quit.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
I honestly think it is like the number one differentiating factor about whether or not an artist or a photographer is going to be successful. Can they crash through the quitting point of life, right? Can they crash through that point where you're like, I'm going to hang the hat up. This doesn't work. If you can do that and you can somehow go through that torturous regime of suffering and misery for a long enough period of time, that's what's going to differentiate whether or not you make it, not the meritocracy of just how good the work is. I believe that's it. So it's amazing to hear you say it, because you've had to go through it multiple times. And like,
Yeah.
if it's the muse on one shoulder, it's the devil on the other shoulder saying, this isn't working. You're not getting any traction. Your art's not good. No one likes it. Art doesn't sell. Just quit, walk away. Right.
Right. Absolutely. And you know what I'm lucky I drew upon the paradigm that I had as a teacher, because I was in that role as a teacher. I was saying to these kids who wanted to quit music, didn't want to work that hard, didn't feel like they were getting success. My job to really make them understand that disciplined effort over time is the only way you're going to get where you need to be. But by the way, you're doing fine right now. Just remember that and reinforce that. And that's what your team does all the time for all of us. So
amazing. Well, inspirational story. You guys got to follow Ken in his journey, because we need to turn his 1,400 Instagram followers into 14,000 and then 140,000. In addition to following you on Instagram, well, you know what we didn't talk about that I do want to talk about before we wrap this thing up is, when did you come out with the book? Who's printing the book?
Oh man,
what's the per unit cost on the book? And while you're doing that, I'll try to find it because I know you've got it somewhere here on your Instagram profile.
Yeah. First of all, I know how you always, I get tired of you saying over and over, merch, the tote bags, everything else. And it's good advice.
Sorry.
It's good advice. But for me, I feel like that's one of my former students in that band that's playing right now. Pat Function. Awesome. They're like this incredible group out of Madison, Wisconsin. But anyway, the book, Patrick, has been my merch. I mean, it's the secret sauce of the book is my mom, who passed 5 years ago, wrote this beautiful poetry her whole life, and she just left it on scraps of paper all over the house. My dad compiled it at the end, and he just typed it all up into a little self-published book. I came upon this poetry after I retired and realized staring in my face was this beautiful source of inspiration, this set of poems that I could look at and then use as inspiration to go out and take a picture of. So if she's writing about a Lake Superior sunset, there it is. I'm going to go out and get that shot that amplifies that.
Amazing. So you paired the poetry with the imagery.
Yeah. And so, yeah, my wife looked at me and she said, you know what? Nobody's going to buy a book on poetry. And I looked at her, I said, actually, honey, I think nobody's going to buy a book just photography. I think it's got to have the secret sauce. And that was it. I mean, so many people resonated with the poetry, talked to me about it. And for me, selfishly, it's a way for me to keep my mom in my heart, you know, and keep on help. She was part of the journey of me discovering and finding this love of photography and sharing it with others. So there was that soulfulness, right, about the
Mhm.
book that I sold out 2 printings of it. It's self-published. It's printed on a beautiful company up in Merrill, Wisconsin called Rindell Publishing, and they just killed
Awesome.
it. So I'm selling it for $40 a pop,
Mhm.
$40 a pop, and so my margin is 50% on every book.
On every book. And how many books total have you sold so far?
The first printing was 400. I'm now the second book. I'm still on the first printing, so it's getting close to the full. So grand both books, it's around 600 books.
600 books. And everyone asks me why I say why merch. That is 600 new customers you have acquired that are now
Yeah.
technically on their way to being collectors, or have the possibility of on their way into being collectors. And it's like, you know, you go through a normal year just trying to sell the wall art, right? And let's say you have a great year and you sell 35 prints. At the end of the year, you have 35 customers that you get a market to. At the end of your year, you're going to have 635 customers to market to, right? And it's like, we cannot forget, it is firmly ensconced in business law. The easiest customer to get is the one that you already have. Okay. And how many of those guys that bought books weren't in the market for wall art when they found you, right? That
Right.
didn't want to have the discussion with their wife, that was going through a remodel, was downsizing, was about to move, whatever it is. If you didn't have the book, that is just a customer you didn't acquire. That's it. It's like, that's it. Why have merch? Low commitment, low low friction sale, and you have 600 people that are on your list now. That this Q4, when you have your big sale, how many of those guys are going to come back? And the math say a significantly high number. That's the game. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm lucky.
I think, and you hear me rant on it all the time, but people always ask me, and you're interesting in that. Okay, 800 people on an email list, primarily because of that damn book. Now that I see it, 1,400 people on Instagram, right? And you're coming up on the $50,000 in sales mark. Okay, great. If you did not have those customers, okay, your business would be on life support growing. You would not be at 50,000 in revenue. You'd be at like 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 in revenue. So I find that the number of new customers acquired per year is the most revenue predictive metric that an art or a photography business can have. And someone was asking you how to approach a publisher. You self-published. You didn't use a publisher, right? Just someone to print it.
Right.
Yeah.
I hired a graphic designer,
Mm-hmm.
and she's wonderful. She designed the whole. Yeah, I mean, it just self-published, and then the printing costs were pretty reasonable, and so I think the margins are really good.
Yeah. And now it opens you up for another book and another book and another book. And I also I've seen this firsthand in my own life. And it's that, Jonah did a really impressive coffee table book. Okay. And he sent me one, wrote a nice note in it. And now it
Yeah,
sits sort of behind where my wife works. And I've
Mm.
watched the book work on her. And now she wants to buy one of his originals.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like the books drive the demand for the original. You're looking at it, you get more comfortable with it, you're seeing it all the time, you're flipping through the pages, guests come over, oh, this is amazing, it's a conversation starter, and guess what? It just drives the wall art sale. And the same is true in reverse too. If you have an original on the wall, why wouldn't you want the book on the coffee table, especially when you know the artist? So absolutely amazing, Ken. Cannot wait
it's so
to
true.
see.
And I
Keep going.
was just going to say that the cyclical nature of that, back and forth, that's so true, because I had people at the show on Sunday night talking about, well, I saw this piece and I see it in your book, and then I've read the story behind the piece and I just love it. And my husband's recovering from cancer and this means so much to him. and it's tied into the emotional thing, Patrick. I don't think you can ever underestimate the emotional
Totally agree.
punch that a story will give you. So when I sold my biggest piece ever on Sunday night, and it was a direct result of the book and the story and all of that. And you're exactly right, man. I've got to come up with an idea for a new book. I'm already trying to figure out what the next thing's going to be.
Yep. And also continue rounding out the merchandise lineup. You know, I did one of these customer interviews, like it's probably about a month ago now, with John Lowry. He owns this gallery called Humble Donkey Studios. Did you see that one?
Yep.
Yeah. Like you look at how many items he has in that shop and the sheer volume of customers he's acquiring as a result. And it's a staggering thing to contemplate. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time. This was awesome. You guys follow Ken on Instagram on his journey to a 6-figure-a-year business. Where else can they find you if they want information about you?
Just kenwielephotography.com is my website, and just grateful to have a chance to spend time with you and talk with you and get your perspective on what I'm doing, and to give you a personal thanks, man, for all that you've done to inspire me these last 3 years. It's been amazing.
I love it. Can't wait to see where you go year 4, year 5, brother. Thanks everybody for listening, watching, tuning in. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on an upcoming interview soon. Bye now.